So actually, I was born in Korea and then immigrated in 1975 to Canada. And then I grew up in Canada, and then in 2004 I moved to the United States. So I live in US right now.
Excellent. And so with your book, I'd imagine writing a book by yourself is a challenging job, but actually co-authoring a book is perhaps another level. What were you trying to achieve or model by actually writing together? Yeah?
Well, there were a lot of things to model. I think because the book deals with so many issues, we wanted both the issues in Australia and US and then kind of globally. So Canada, Korea, Asia, Africa. So we were able to model that, and coming from a different perspective, me as an Asian American woman and my friend here as an Australian.
Yeah, and we thought it would be really good to show what it means to be the Church of Jesus Christ in its full diversity and its breadth of perspectives. And to do that, a man and a woman writing together from different societies, totally different cultures, all of that models what we're trying to articulate in the book and what we're driving at. And that is that the Church needs to show the world what it means to be a new people, with the love and the grace, the equality, and the humanity of Christ.
Mm-hmm.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Now, your book talks about healing a broken world. What is it that you see in our world that actually needs to be healed? Why is it so broken?
Oh, there's so many brokenness, but just to, individually we may be broken as God's child. And as a society, there's brokenness. So, in the US today, a lot of discrimination or hatred towards different groups of people. So when there's that kind of brokenness, we as community of believers, we as God's children need to reach out and kind of heal that brokenness, and also our individual brokenness, whether we feel broken in our homes, where we work. So there's different types. So we try to cover as much as we can in the book, but we can't cover the whole thing.
Yeah, so I think there is so much brokenness when it comes to relationships especially. Often that is expressed through racism or sexism or political division or all sorts of divisions and animosities. But at the end of the day, a lot of the brokenness is about our sinfulness, about the conflicts within us, and then the conflicts among us. And in the book we're trying to describe what does it mean to begin to join with Christ as he heals this brokenness and this dividedness in the world today.
Yeah, so then we do cover, different ways of how you can achieve that. That was probably your next question, sorry.
Well, so a part of that is like healing humanity and revitalising the church. So what are your hopes, like, I guess if we buy a bunch of these books and start reading them at TCBC, what would you hope to see us benefit from? What would happen?
Oh, so many exciting things. So that'll be great, because we had intention either use it as individuals or in your family or in a church group setting, because each chapter has an appendix where you can do a study group. You can kind of copy it. There's discussion questions, reflections, things that you can work out. So you can deal with the different issues. I don't know what the brokenness of the people here are, or the sinfulness that people in Sydney are experiencing. But I think as a group, you can work that out. So that would be very exciting. That was what we had in mind, a goal that people will kind of use it together.
Many of the themes that we deal with in the book are grand themes, and they can feel a bit overwhelming. So themes around justice or reconciliation, those themes are big themes. But what we try to do in the book is say, what does it mean for local communities of faith to think about the biblical basis of a Christian response to a particular theme? So what does it mean to follow Jesus as a people of justice? What does it mean to follow Jesus as a people of reconciliation? And then what we do is we say, here are some very practical things, very small things even, that local churches and small groups can do to begin to be a people of justice, to begin to help bring reconciliation into the world, to bring a new sense of hospitality and embrace into the world. So going from the grand things to very small things that local churches and small groups can do together on a week in and week out basis.
So I'd imagine, I think for me, just embracing your own brokenness is actually the first step to actually healing a broken world. Have you seen churches grab hold of this book, use this book, and what's been the outcomes?
Yeah, so the book came out last August. So I live in the States, I teach in the US at a school, at a seminary. So I've spoken on this book both in the US and Canada, and people are using it in their churches, and the response has been very positive. People are recognizing that it doesn't matter where you live, either in Korea or in Africa. These issues are kind of the sinfulness that we find ourselves in, the sins that we commit are kind of global. So people are committing them and participating and being part of the brokenness. So the response has been positive. People are using it in the churches. So I'm thrilled about that because, when you write a book, we don't know what will happen. Yeah. It has a life of its own. So I'm hoping that this community can also do that too.
Yeah. So there are 9 practices, and an example is the practice of lament. So in many of our churches we do celebration really well, but we don't know how to engage lament, which is a biblical practice and has a long tradition, thousands and thousands of years of the people of God practicing lament in order to discover hope and renewal and life. So one of the practices we discovered that churches are embracing is lament, and we show how do you get with a small group of people in a church, write a lament for the brokenness of the world that moves you to hope and to making a difference in your neighbourhood. And that's an example, I think, we've seen churches picking this up and saying, finally we know how to do something like lament that we didn't know how to do before.
And just to tag on that, there's other practices, but the one that always the churches seem to kind of gravitate to, which surprised me, was the lament. They realized that they haven't been doing this as people of God. It's part of the Old Testament tradition, but somehow we don't do it. So I was kind of surprised with that response, that people really, really loved the lament section.
Great, we'll all be lamenting together. Can you name another practice that comes out of, I'm a practical person, I'm an ex-builder, so what's another practice that comes out of the book?
I guess the reconciliation and hospitality. Hospitality, I'm when you were making the announcement, the most important thing you forgot was the soup and I was going to say soup and salad, but I guess it's soup and bread. But whatever it is, that's an act of hospitality. And I think churches have kind of lost this tradition of kind of fellowship and welcoming the stranger. People around the world practice hospitality differently. So one of the things I kind of contribute is in the Asian culture, when we invite people over, it's not so important how many people that you bring. I think in the West, I don't know the Australian very well, but I know in America and in Canada, it's very important because the host will prepare, if you say 5 people, then there will be 5 pieces of chicken or 5 pieces of steak. But in the Korean and Asian culture, everything's cut up, right? So when you prepare it, that's why we use chopsticks. But the act of hospitality, then it doesn't matter how many people you bring because we'll just have fewer pieces of chicken or fewer pieces of vegetables. But I think to practice the hospitality is so important. And I know some communities are doing it better than others. And I think this community is really good at practicing hospitality. So just to encourage that.